Imagine this: a massive fortress of steel and concrete sitting in the mountains of Afghanistan. A base so large it once housed over 40,000 troops, 2 runways long enough to launch the world's biggest bombers, and intelligence hubs that tracked enemies across half of Asia. Now, it's silent, empty, controlled not by America but by the Taliban. And yet, here we are in 2025, with Donald Trump demanding that the U.S. should never have given it up. Why? Because that base Bagram airfield wasn't just another outpost. It was the beating heart of America's war in Afghanistan, and maybe the key to America's future in the region. But here's the haunting question. Is Trump right that giving up Bagram was the biggest mistake America ever made in the war on terror? Or is his demand just another political stunt? The answer is far more urgent and dangerous than anyone wants to admit, because the fate of one airbase in Afghanistan could shape the next great power struggle between America, China, Russia, and the entire Middle East. Bagram Airbase wasn't just a military site. It was a city within a city. Built originally by the Soviets in the 1950s, expanded by the U.S. after 2001. At its peak, it covered 6,000 acres, larger than many small American towns. It had 2 massive runways, one stretching 12,000 feet, capable of handling F-16s, B-52 bombers, and even giant C-5 Galaxy transport planes. Inside it had hospitals, detention centers, drone command hubs, and intelligence monitoring posts that spied deep into Central Asia. Billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars flowed into this fortress. According to Pentagon reports, the U.S. invested over $96 billion in base construction and maintenance during the 20-year war. But here's the twist. Bagram wasn't just about Afghanistan. From this base, the U.S. could watch and, if needed, strike across the entire region. To the west, Iran was just 600 miles away. To the north, Russia's former Soviet states. To the east, China's restive Xinjiang province, home to its Uyghur minority, was within drone range. In other words, Bagram wasn't America's Afghan base. It was America's regional command center. And when the U.S. abandoned it overnight in July 2021, leaving behind millions of dollars in equipment, allies and enemies alike saw the same thing: a superpower walking away from its own leverage. In September 2025, Donald Trump shocked both allies and rivals when he declared that America should never have left Bagram Airbase. He didn't mince words. In a rally speech, he called the withdrawal the single most catastrophic mistake in modern U.S. military history. Why now? Why bring up a base America left behind more than 4 years ago? Because Trump understands something his critics refuse to admit. Bagram was more than concrete and runways, it was leverage. And leverage, in geopolitics, is everything. Here's the twist. Trump isn't just talking about Afghanistan. He's talking about China and Russia. Since the U.S. exit, China has been steadily expanding its Belt and Road projects in Afghanistan, including talks about mining Afghanistan's $1 trillion worth of rare earth minerals. Russia, though tied down in Ukraine, has quietly sent envoys to the Taliban exploring arms deals and energy cooperation. Even Iran, America's longtime adversary, now coordinates with the Taliban on border security and trade. Trump's message to Americans is clear. We didn't just lose a war. We handed our rivals the keys to the region. And here's the geopolitical kicker. While Trump's critics laugh at the idea of reopening Bagram, U.S. intelligence insiders admit that China has shown interest in repurposing the base not as a military hub, but as a logistical and surveillance outpost. So ask yourself, if China plants its flag at Bagram, who really won the war on terror? Why Bagram still matters? At first glance, some argue, so what? America left Afghanistan. Time to move on. But the geography of Bagram makes moving on impossible. Let's break it down. From Bagram, the U.S. could strike terrorists anywhere in Afghanistan within minutes. It could monitor Iran's nuclear activities with surveillance drones. It could track Russian troop movements in Central Asia. And most importantly, it sat on the doorstep of China's most sensitive region, Xinjiang, where Beijing faces separatist tensions. That's not just a base. That's a geopolitical knife pointed at the heart of America's rivals. When the U.S. abandoned Bagram in July 2021, it didn't just lose a fortress. It lost the most valuable piece of real estate in the new Cold War. And here's the urgency. America still needs a launch pad in the region. Why? Because the terrorist threat didn't vanish with the Taliban takeover. In 2023, the United Nations confirmed that al-Qaeda maintains a safe haven inside Afghanistan, protected by Taliban networks. ISIS-K, the group that killed 13 U.S. service members in the Kabul airport attack in August 2021, has expanded operations into Pakistan and beyond. Without Bagram, America is blind. It now relies on over-the-horizon strikes launched from bases in Qatar or the Persian Gulf flights that take 6-8 hours before they even reach Afghan airspace. By then, the target is gone. So when Trump demands Bagram back, he's not just reminiscing about the past. He's pointing at America's gaping hole in national security. Regional stakeholders, a base everyone wants, but no one can have. Here's where the story takes an even sharper twist. Bagram isn't just important to the use it's a prize every regional power has its eyes on. Pakistan. For Pakistan, Bagram is a nightmare and an opportunity rolled into one. Islamabad knows that if the U.S. ever regains Bagram, American drones will again fly over the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, targeting militants. But Pakistan also fears that India, its rival, could use America's presence at Bagram to squeeze Pakistan's influence in Kabul. India. For India, Bagram is a dream. New Delhi has invested over $3 billion in Afghan infrastructure projects since 2001. With America gone, India has little leverage left. If Washington returned to Bagram, India would quietly welcome it because it blocks both Pakistan and China from dominating Afghanistan. China. China's interest is colder, more calculated. Afghanistan holds lithium, copper, and rare earth metals, all critical for China's tech industry. Beijing doesn't want a full military presence at Bagram, but a Chinese surveillance or mining hub there would give it control over resources and intelligence on U.S. moves in Central Asia. Russia. For Moscow, Bagram is a haunting reminder. In the 1980s, the Soviet Union built and used it as their main Afghan base before their empire collapsed. Today, Russia doesn't want America Bagram, but it doesn't want China controlling it either. So Russia plays a double game, talking with the Taliban while quietly warning China not to dominate too much. Iran. For Tehran, Bagram was always a threat. With U.S. bombers just 600 miles from Tehran, Iran lived under constant pressure. Now that the Taliban control it, Iran breathes easier, but also worries. Because if America returns, Iran is back under the gun. America's missed opportunity. What leaving Bagram really cost. July 2, 2021. It was the dead of night when U.S. forces slipped out of Bagram Airbase without even informing the Afghan commander on duty. No ceremony, no warning. Just a silent exit after 20 years of war and $2 trillion spent. The Afghan soldiers woke up to find the Americans gone, and within weeks, the entire country collapsed. The Taliban swept into Kabul by mid-August. Billions of dollars in U.S. military equipment were left behind. And Bagram, the fortress built with American blood and treasure, was abandoned without a fight. Here's the haunting twist. U.S. intelligence officials now admit that the hasty closure of Bagram crippled counterterrorism operations. The 2021 Kabul airport attack by ISIS-K that killed 13 U.S. Marines? Experts argue it could have been prevented had Bagram remained operational. Detainees once held in Bagram's prison, thousands of them were freed by the Taliban. Many have rejoined extremist networks. Drone strikes now take hours instead of minutes, making missions riskier and less effective. And yet, the political establishment in Washington called it a necessary step to end America's longest war. But was it really? Or did America trade temporary peace at home for permanent weakness abroad? The truth hurts. By leaving Bagram, the U.S. didn't just leave Afghanistan, it left behind the most strategically important military hub between the Middle East and Asia. The new great game, Bagram as the chessboard of the 21st century. To understand why Trump keeps bringing up Bagram, we need to go back to history. In the 19th century, Afghanistan was the heart of the great game between the British Empire and Tsarist Russia. Whoever controlled Afghanistan controlled the gateway to South Asia and Central Asia. Today that game is back, but the players have changed. The U.S. still searching for a foothold after the withdrawal. China pushing its Belt and Road projects through Afghanistan to secure trade routes and rare earth minerals. Russia desperate to stop NATO from encroaching further into Central Asia. India and Pakistan locked in their eternal rivalry, each trying to shape Kabul's future. Iran maneuvering quietly, using trade and religious influence to build soft power. And at the center of this modern great game? Bagram Airbase. Think about it. If the U.S. had held Bagram, Washington could pressure both China and Iran at the same time. If China gains influence there, America's surveillance blind spot grows and Beijing secures a resource hub. If Russia meddles there, it regains influence in its former Soviet backyard. The irony is chilling. The U.S. spent 2 decades and over 2,400 American lives to secure Afghanistan. And in the end, the spoils of war may go to its rivals. Future scenarios. What if Bagram comes back? What if it doesn't? Here's where the stakes get real. What happens next depends entirely on whether America listens to Trump or ignores him. Scenario 1. America reclaims Bagram. This would mean negotiating directly with the Taliban or worse, another military intervention. The benefits? A forward operating base against terrorism. Surveillance reach over Iran, China, and Russia. Reassurance to allies like India and Israel that America is not retreating from the region, but the risks are just as big. Another military entanglement in Afghanistan could drag U.S. troops back into the same cycle of endless war. It could spark backlash at home, where war fatigue is still raw. And it could trigger proxy resistance from China, Russia, and Iran, each determined to stop America from regaining its lost foothold. Scenario 2. America stays out. This is the path Washington is currently on. The benefits? No more U.S. boots on the ground. No more direct costs of defending a remote fortress. Political leaders can claim, "We ended the war." But here's the dark side. Terror networks regroup under Taliban protection. China quietly expands influence through mining deals and surveillance projects. Russia positions itself as a mediator in Kabul, carving out influence. America's regional allies, India, Israel, even Saudi Arabia, begin doubting U.S. commitment. So which path is safer? Neither. Both are dangerous. But one thing is clear. Ignoring Bagram is not an option. Bigger picture. The question that haunts America. So here we are. Donald Trump's demand to take Bagram isn't just nostalgia. It's a warning. Because Bagram isn't about Afghanistan anymore. It's about America's place in the world. If the U.S. allows rivals like China or Russia to turn Bagram into their foothold, the consequences will ripple across the next century. America will lose its only direct vantage point into Central Asia. Counterterrorism operations will remain crippled. Allies will question U.S. resolve. Rivals will claim victory in the post-American world order. But if America reclaims Bagram, it risks sliding back into the same cycle that drained its economy and cost so many lives. This is the haunting paradox. Bagram is both America's greatest opportunity and its greatest trap. And that's why Trump's words matter, not because he's right or wrong, but because he's forcing America to confront a question it desperately wants to avoid. Can the United States afford to walk away from the most strategic airbase of the 21st century? Or will walking away mean surrendering the future itself? The answer will define not just Afghanistan, not just Trump's legacy, but America's role in the world for generations to come. Factual anchors used: U.S. withdrawal July 2021, Pentagon spending figures, Taliban takeover. UN reports on Al-Qaeda 2023, ISIS-K expansion, Bagram size and runways. China's rare earth mining talks, India's $3 billion Afghan investment, Trump's September 2025 statement on Bagram. Geopolitical twists included: Bagram as leverage against China, Russia, Iran. Regional stakes for Pakistan, India, Iran. Future scenarios showing dangers both ways.